welcome back to the Film Reelcast. I'm Stuart, I am your host. We are back in the dojo. It's Season 2, Episode 1. This is called Mercy Part 2. Okay, before we get into this episode, remember, we're going to go into plot spoilers. We're going to talk about what happened. So if you haven't seen this episode, pause it now, watch the episode, then come back and join in the conversation. If you remember when we left it, Miguel had finally won the All Valley tournament. He'd beaten Robbie. To be fair, Robbie was injured. Miguel played on that injury to win. And we'll go into that a little bit later on. And that's his dramatic change of character in Johnny. And also at the end of the episode, we saw Kreese turn up. And if you remember Kreese from the 1984 film, Kreese was a very bad influence. And we go into his character in a bit more depth with regards to flashbacks as how he changed the character of Johnny and how he got Johnny probably into karate when it was at its most vulnerable. So Kreese has come back into the life of Johnny, much to the shock and disappointment and surprise, back into his life. And they meet on the dojo conveniently. And Kreese talks about he heard that his student won the All Valley Championship and that Miguel has kicked ass basically and that he's taken him under his wing. And then he starts to try and get on the subject of, I taught you everything you knew. I knew you'd be a champion. You needed to start this dojo up again. The town needs it. And he even goes on to saying, a bit later on, the world needs Cobra Kai Dojo. But Johnny has succeeded. He's opened his own dojo. He's a sensei. He's got his own students. And miraculously, one of his students has already won the All Valley tournament. So he doesn't need Kreese back in his life. And he tells him that. And I think it's more due to shock that they have a big fight on the dojo. And he kicks a cigar conveniently out of Kreese's mouth, lands in a bin. You see smoke coming out of the bin. You think that due to his arrival, that possibly the dojo is going to burn down, and it's going to be quite dramatic. They have a fight, and it ends really, really well. It ends in a flashback that he gets Kreese, Johnny does, in a headlock. And it reminds him of when he came second in that tournament, when he broke the head off his tournament for coming second place. In Kreese's eyes, there was no winner coming second. You don't get anything, it's first or nothing. And you shouldn't be celebrating second place in life, and especially in karate. And he gets Kreese in a headlock, and in the broken glass that Johnny's previously been thrown into, you get the flashback of outside the tournament, where he gets Johnny in a headlock, and everyone's telling Kreese, stop it, you're killing him. And due to that, Johnny realises he doesn't want to be like Kreese. Everything about Kreese is bad, and he finally sees that, so he releases him from his headlock. So remember, that bond between Daniel and Robbie is also back. And Daniel has taken Robbie under his wing again, and they've taken him back to Miyagi Dojo. And there's a lovely scene where they pull the sheets off the old cars that Mr. Miyagi left for Daniel. And then Daniel says that he's got a lot of work to do. And Robbie says, I see a tin of wax in my life suddenly appearing. And he says, no, we've got a lot more to do. So they go through the montage of doing the fences, sanding the floor, waxing the cars. And remember, Robbie can't improve in his life. No one can improve in your life if you don't have a montage. Making a sandwich, cooking dinner, cleaning the car, everything improves with a montage. And that's what they get. And it's a really nice bonding moment. The one thing they do that I can't do is bang a nail in one go. I've tried doing that. I was with my son, Adam, and we were putting felt on the shed. And we even joked about banging nails in first go. And I am crap. I will never be a karate master. And I found that out the hard way, and so did the shed roof. And Daniel talks to Amanda about getting back into karate and how important it is. And that at this point, that he's doing the karate to take down the Cobra Kai Dojo because he says someone needs to. They need to be stopped. And to be honest, this was a bit disappointing and it was concerning. But when this comment was made, because I was worried that the story for Season 2 would be Daniel and Robbie and whoever else joins, it turns out to be Samantha, against Cobra Kai Dojo all the way through. That they'd be trying to get one up on each other all the time. And that sounds like a really boring idea. It's been done before. And where can that go? That again, they're graffiti and they're causing damage, they're fighting. It's good probably for an episode, but after a few episodes of this, it will start to get boring and a bit monotonous. So it was concerning to hear that Daniel's sole goal is to take down Cobra Kai, and he sees them as the enemy. And at the moment, that's a bit worrying to hear plot-wise. And what's also nice is you also see Johnny continuing that relationship he's getting with Miguel's mum. There's a nice dinner scene where they're talking about their personal life, and this seems a bond that is growing. And even Johnny's now has earned a trust from Miguel's mum, having taught him karate, especially won the tournament, that there seems to be a bond there, and it's going to be really interesting to see where this relationship goes. So whilst this is going on, poor old Miguel, remember, he's on the rocks, his relationship is failing badly, and it all seems to be going in the direction of Robbie, which we predicted back in season 1. And he's been blocked on social media. Every kid's worst nightmare, being blocked, having less friends, having fewer people looking at what you're posting. He's been blocked by Samantha, and it's heartbreaking for him because I think he knows where it's going. And every time you see it, you see Samantha really happy with Robbie. You see Miguel really pissed off. And I think despite what Johnny is trying to do, and despite what Daniel's trying to do, there's obviously that love triangle, that rivalry that's always going to be there until something happens, till it explodes and gets to an end where it just can't go any further. And I don't know when that will be, but the way it's going, that they're feeding Robbie into Samantha's life, something's going to happen. And you see when Hawk and Miguel get back to the dojo, there's lots of students outside. And it was the same when Miguel kicked Kyla's ass in the canteen. The next day, all the geeks, all the people who are being bullied saw that, and they joined the dojo. This is exactly the same. There's no better advert than the student winning the All Valley tournament. So Hawk and Miguel turn up, and there's lots of people outside, and they're the same kind of people who you'd expect to join the dojo, similar to when Miguel won. And Hawk, this is a real dick side of him, and it's a real dick move that he does. When the kids are outside waiting to go in, they're obviously a bit geeky and they're starstruck. There's the champions, that's what they say. And Miguel just walks in, quite happy, but Hawk kind of fake punches, makes them all flinch, and he said, you've got a long way to go. And he's a real arrogant little shit at the moment, and it's a side of him that isn't necessary and not needed. And they go into the dojo, but they're soon put down to earth. Johnny says to them, in a real change, and I think this change has been brought on because he spent time with Kreese, and he knows Kreese's ethos is one of don't give a shit about anyone else. Everyone else is a victim. Everyone else is a target. And he says that you won by beating the enemy because they were injured. Hawk, you injured him. Miguel, you made most of that injury by targeting it. Remember, he pulled Robbie's arm, and he made that injury worse. And he went through the whole competition, the whole last fight, targeting that injury, and he won by that. And he says he's a coward. And he even says to Aisha, who would get more respect? Who would you want to be than a cobra attacking an injured, kind of disabled animal, or a cobra attacking and putting down a lion? You'd want to be the one putting down the lion because the lion's stronger. And he uses that analogy against Hawk and Miguel, and he makes them do 100 sit-ups, and this confuses Miguel. And he says, I won. Why are you speaking like this to me? Why are you singling me out? And it's nice because Johnny says, you can do a lot better than this. You're a better person than this. You don't need to target people's weaknesses to win. You're talented enough. You're more talented than I ever was to be able to go further in karate than I ever can. And he says you don't need to target weaknesses. Be strong, be focused, and it will make you a better person. And I think this is the kind of the influence of Kreese coming into the life, that he sees all the negativity, everything that was bad that made Johnny the kind of the protagonist in a way in the first Karate Kid, that he's trying to get rid of. So due to the fight that happened earlier in the dojo between Kreese and Johnny, Johnny has to go to the hardware store. And likewise for Daniel, who's doing up his dojo, the Miyagi dojo, he has to go there as well. And he goes there with Robbie. And it's a really tough moment that could have worked out so well but turned so bad, where they see each other and Johnny approaches Robbie and just says, look, how's life going? He says, I'm sorry about what happened at the tournament. I didn't ask for my students to target your injury. And they kind of make up. And then Johnny comes up with a real dick move of saying, are you still going to work with that dickhead LaRusso? And then Robbie says something that a dad would never want to hear from a son. He says that Daniel is a better man than you'll ever be. And you'll never be a better man than Daniel. And that must hurt Johnny so much. And Johnny was doing so well. They were so close to trying to make up of what had happened. And then the line comes in that changes the whole ethos, the whole thinking of Daniel, of when Robbie comes outside and he says, how did that go? Is everything all right? And he says, things don't change. My dad's still more concerned about the rivalry between you and him than he is giving a shit about me. And that is food for thought for Daniel. That Daniel is also focusing on the wrong thing when he says to Amanda, like he did earlier, that I want to bring down the Cobra Kai dojo. Someone needs to do it. Someone needs to destroy that dojo. And it changes his way of thinking to possibly that isn't the right approach. Because Mr. Miyagi never taught attack. He always taught defense. And there is a moment of kind of foreshadowing from Daniel and Samantha. Samantha's in the dojo. Remember, she is very good. She's an untested source of talent that we haven't seen yet because she's not kicked anyone's ass. But we know she's capable. Daniel sits down with her and starts talking about previous relationships that he's had that have failed, of where he fell in love. And he thought it was going to go somewhere, and it ended up in disaster. And this is obviously because Miguel has fallen out with Samantha and vice versa, and he's trying to kind of explain that it's not the end of the world. And he talks about Ali. I'd love it if Ali came back. Maybe not this season, because there's quite a few things that need to happen still. Kreese is back in. Too many main characters wouldn't work. But it would be lovely for Ali to come back in. And is it what they're doing? Are they kind of sowing that seed for Ali to come back in into season 3, which hasn't come out in the UK yet? But they leave these little gems for you to think about. And that nostalgia as well keeps going through all of this, which really helps with the enjoyment. So is Ali coming back? Would you want to see Ali come back? Would it ruin it? Is it too much? Do they need to keep bringing back old characters? Or are new characters better to introduce with their own character arc? I mean, what do you think? Let me know. Leave comments. And whilst Daniel is going through his own transition in kind of his approach to the way he's dealing with things, so is Johnny. Whilst fixing the mirror that Kreese threw him through, that he has a flashback of when he was younger learning karate. And he got his blue belt. And Kreese was still telling him that you're not good enough, that you shouldn't be happy with just getting a blue belt, that you need to be more. And due to this, the younger Johnny, which we've seen in previous flashbacks, was crying. And he kind of really berated him. He really was horrible to him at the fact he was crying. And there was a sense of weakness and told him to stop crying and that Cobra Kai don't cry. And again, it's that kind of, he's not exploiting him, but he's kind of brainwashing him into his way of thought. That you can't show weakness, and it's strong to show any kind of emotion unless it's aggression. And Johnny, thankfully, can now see that this isn't the approach that will make him a better person, and it's certainly not the approach that will make his students better people. So both Johnny and Daniel are going on a very different journey of kind of reminiscing about what happened previously, but they're both looking to end up in the same place. So whilst at Miyagi Dojo, Robbie sees Daniel kind of meditating, and he speaks to him, and Daniel explains, just like what's happened to Johnny, that his thought's wrong, he's going in a different direction, and that he explains the posters that are kind of, well, not the posters, the scrolling that's on the wall, that Mr. Miyagi taught defense first. And you see a flashback from the original karate where he's got the Chinese writing, and he says that the best form of karate is defense. You don't need to go on attack. You've got it in the bag should you need it, but you just should be able to defend yourself, and that should be enough. So, and he's trying to teach that to Robbie. And he says to Robbie that I've had a change of thought, that we're not going to destroy Cobra Kai. We're going to teach people that the way Cobra Kai are teaching the kids is the wrong way, and that there is a better way. There's a more peaceful way, and that isn't so destructive, that you must join Miyagi Dojo instead. So they're not going to do it by force, they're going to do it by education and teaching the kids And that's a real good change of approach. And whilst they're talking about that, Samantha appears as well, and she wants to join. Because from speaking to Miguel, from speaking to Amanda as well, that they've realised that destruction and violence isn't the right way. And from seeing Miguel in the dojo fighting with Robbie, it certainly isn't. So it'll be interesting to see their approach now. There's two of them. And again, this is the triangle that I spoke about. Robbie is obviously over the moon Samantha's joined, and she seems pretty struck on Robbie as well. So that'll be interesting to see where it goes. But they're going to be more peaceful approach. But will they allow to be peaceful? Because obviously they're going to have Hawk, they're going to have Aisha, they're going to have Miguel, like coming straight at them now. And I think it's going to kick off in the next episode. It'll be interesting to see. But they've changed their approach. So to finish it off, Kreese turns up at Johnny's dojo. And he brings the second place trophy and he's fixed it and he apologises. And he says that in my eyes, you are the winner. This is a different approach that Kreese is using. Rather than the strike first, strike hard, no nonsense, you must be strong, don't show emotion approach. He's come back more the humble approach. And I don't trust Kreese. He's always got an agenda. He's fixed Johnny's trophy and he says that you were the better student. You were always my best student. And he gives him the trophy. And he says that I'll go and I won't be in your life anymore. And if you don't need me, I just wish you the best of luck and go. And the approach he's doing is pulling Johnny's heartstrings. Johnny's going through a transition as well. He's probably a bit vulnerable and weak due to this change. And Kreese is saying the right things at the right time and he leaves. And as he leaves, you know there's that tropey moment where he's walking away and you know Johnny's going to open that door. And he does. And he shouts out to Kreese to tell him to stop. And you just see that look on Kreese, or is it Hoggle from Labyrinth's face, that his plans worked. He's managed to wiggle his way back into Johnny's life. And I think that can only mean disaster for Johnny. That can only mean disaster for Miguel, for Hawk, for Aisha, and possibly Daniel. What's the fallout going to be when Daniel sees that Kreese is back into Johnny's life? And if Johnny is trying to change, and if he is trying to get that message across to Daniel that he's trying to change, having Kreese there isn't the right message. It's not the right advertising that I'm a different person. And Kreese will again manipulate Johnny until something happens. So I can't see anything good coming out of this. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. But that's episode 1 of season 2, which is Mercy Part 2. A really good episode. The introduction of Kreese is really going to stir things up. And people have changed direction of what they want to do. Remember, Daniel doesn't want to take down Cobra Kai. Johnny doesn't want to play the dirty game. But Kreese is going to put a stop to that, I think. And I think things are going to hot up. And the people are going to seriously start to fall out. Okay, so if you enjoyed that, you've got season 1 to watch as well. A really, really good season. Really well acted, really well written. You really get involved with these characters. They're absolutely brilliant. And I've got The Shield as well. And if you look up there, you've got a link to The Shield. Just click on that and I've done 10 episodes of The Shield of season 1. An amazing police drama. Probably, for me, the best police drama ever made and shown on TV. Really, really good. Starring Vic Mackey and his very corrupt strike team. So you've got that to watch. Obviously, you've got the podcast as well. We've just put the Meg out on our podcast platform and all good platforms on Android and on iTunes. If you go there, you'll find the Film Reel Cast. It's the picture you can see on the screen. Look for that logo. Click on subscribe and you won't miss an episode. It's Halloween coming up. What other film can we do than 2018's Blumhouse reintroduction of the Halloween franchise with Jamie Lee Curtis? So we're reviewing that. Listen to our podcast. That will be out next week and get our views on that. James hasn't seen this film. It'll be interesting to see what he thinks of it. If he's brave enough to watch it from behind that cushion. So I'm Stuart. This is the Film Reelcast and I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you very much.